Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the 3P's podcast, brought to you by Zeus Fire and Security, where our mission is to protect people, property, and profits. I'm Scott Elkins, CEO of Zeus, and your host today. For today's episode, I'm excited to be joined by Nick Tierno, our Vice President of Corporate Development here at Zeus. Nick is a valued member of our leadership team, and his path to Zeus began through the Access Creating Executives, or ACE program, created by Access Holdings. The ACE program is an immersive executive development initiative designed to shape the next generation of business leaders across the Access ecosystem. Participants aren't just observing, they're embedded in portfolio companies, working shoulder to shoulder with executives to drive meaningful impact, sharpen their leadership skills, and prepare to take on senior roles in the future. Nick's journey through ACE, along with his earlier experience at American Student Transportation, gave him unique insights and tools that continue to influence his leadership here at Zeus. Today, we'll explore that journey, the lessons learned along the way, and how programs like ACE are building a strong pipeline of future leaders for Zeus and the broader Access family. Access Holdings is a Baltimore-based private equity firm that builds modern and enduring businesses in essential service sectors. The firm partners with leadership teams to accelerate growth, drive operational excellence, and deliver lasting impact across its portfolio of middle market companies. Nick, welcome to the 3P's podcast studio.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we're excited to talk about the ACE program today. I'd love to understand your journey to the ACE program. What initially drew you to it?
So what drew me to the program was the opportunity to act as a true operating partner across the Access family ecosystems and in specific portfolio companies. And from day one, it's been exactly that. It's been an opportunity to collaborate with leaders like yourself and really make an impact. So it's been thoroughly enjoyable.
So the ACE program covers a lot of different functions. Talk a little bit about the different functions that it covers and then the function that you chose to embrace.
So I'll start there. So my background is in private equity, mergers and acquisitions. The ACE program is fantastic because you sit at the middle of finance, strategy, business development. The opportunities are endless. And what you really get is visibility in how decisions cascade through the entire organization.
So how long have you been in ACE and what's the journey been like for you?
It's been fantastic. So I started with American Student Transportation Partners back in March of 2024. So a little over a year and some change. It's been thoroughly enjoyable, as I said, and we've had a lot of fun here together at Zeus already.
Yeah. So what does a corporate development ACE do?
We are focused on growing and scaling businesses that have made an impact in communities for generations and doing that in a very intelligent way. So we're building and bringing resources to the table that may not have been common in the industry, but we're doing it in a very thoughtful way.
Yeah, so what's exciting about your story, at least for me, and I think for our audience as well, is that you were an ACE that started out at ASTP.
Yes.
ASTP successfully transacted, and now you're here at Zeus. How did that happen?
Well, I'd like to say that I made a good impression on the folks at Access, and my knowledge in M&A and in growing and scaling businesses was needed. That said, what we're doing is we're really building an impactful business here at Zeus. And that's beyond people and profits. We're focused on communities as well. And that's no different from what we did at ASTP. So it's been about a month and change with Zeus. So things are going well.
So Nick, what's the difference between being a corporate development ACE and working in the corporate development department?
So what you get is a seat at the table. You're front and center with senior leadership. You're front and center with senior leadership across the Access ecosystem. It is really an opportunity to differentiate yourself and the level of impact that you can bring to the team. With that comes the joy of being able to watch your work come to fruition.
Yes, so ACEs also have specific training that's really not available to the rest of the business. Tell me a little bit about that training and what have you learned? What have you liked? Maybe what you didn't like.
Part of that is being invited to leadership summits and ACE training programs where you'll meet with some of your colleagues, you'll get to develop mentors, you'll have the opportunity to understand that although ACE and colleagues are in different industries, they're facing a lot of the same opportunities and challenges that you are in your portco. What that's done is reinforced for me that leadership is contextual, right? The foundation, though, of culture, passion, and performance and processes cascades through, and it travels very well.
Yeah. So what was your favorite ACE training?
My favorite training was we got to spend time with one of the professors at the School of Business, and she was a psychologist, taught us a lot about the intersection of AI, leadership, negotiation, leadership styles. It was fascinating.
Have you been stretched as a result of your experience as an ACE candidate coming through the Access Portco system?
Certainly. I think all leaders are stretched and they're constantly learning and adaptable. That's no different within the ACE program. I feel that that's been not only provided to me, but it's been expected of me, and it's helped everyone raise their game.
Yeah. So help me understand why a company would want to have ACE candidates, throughout their facility working in their business.
I think the obvious answer is you're looking for perspective and you're looking for continuous improvement and refinement. Many senior leaders that I work with have been in their industries and they've done it their way for decades, and it's worked very well. But even so, they're still intellectually curious. They're humble and they're looking for another level of success. And what we can do is bring that outsider's perspective. We can bring our hunger and our ambition to the table, and we can make that a reality.
One of the things that I've benefited from tremendously is this access to ACE talent that was never available to me in my career before joining Access Holdings and becoming a leader of one of their portfolio companies. It really does draw a lot of talented people. Why are so many talented people, particularly talented young people, attracted to this program?
I use the word impact quite often because that's what's top of mind for me. You have the ability to take your experiences and your skill sets and directly apply it where it's needed. Beyond that, I think it's important to note that your skills and experiences can be directly applied for businesses that have served local communities for generations, and you can see the direct impact that makes.
So how does an ACE transition like you did from one portfolio company to another pretty seamlessly? Like, how does that happen? It takes most people a long time to ramp up.
It does, but it's been, number one, with the help of the Access team and the introductions that were made early in the process before the transition made it incredibly smooth. But then working with the senior leaders like yourself and the rest of the Zeus leadership team, who've been not only encouraging me to be curious and encouraging me to be communicative, but really just making that possible. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, look, thank you, because what we desperately want and need in order to grow, as you said, a modern and enduring business, are people that are going to help push the entire organization forward by being curious, right? By asking questions and by also challenging the status quo. You referred to that earlier. I ran a security alarm company for 32 years before joining Access, and it was reasonably successful. But we have a much better business today as a result of the ACE community and Access Holdings in general. It really is a pleasure to get to work with so many incredibly talented people that I never had access to in any time in my career. Speaking of access, or access to talent, how did you learn about the ACE program?
So I was introduced. Kate Hardy at Access reached out to me, and ever since we had that first conversation, I knew it was the right fit. I deeply believe in the Access strategy of buying and building businesses and differentiating them through data-driven approaches and the leverage of technology. It just felt right from the very beginning.
Yeah, so how did Kate reach out to you? Were you on LinkedIn, or did she find you through a recruiter? Like, how did that happen?
I was on LinkedIn. I was not looking for another opportunity. I saw this and did more research on Access, and the rest is history.
Yeah, so I've heard that story so many times that somebody will get a phone call and they'll explain what the Access ACE program is, and people who were perfectly happy in their previous career will say, wait a second, this is something special that I want to be a part of. So 2 trainings a year at least, right? Access to executives, different functions throughout the business.
Yes.
Can really help round out a career.
It can. as I had mentioned earlier, you are front and center for all of the functions and all of the key decisions that are being made at the company. So what you get the benefit of is seeing how decisions make an impact across the entire organization. And as long as you're paying attention, you learn to make that holistic perspective the norm.
Yeah, so I think that's really well said. Can you give me an example at either ASTP or Zeus of anything related to either decision making or management or leadership styles where you said, that's something that I'm going to take with me?
Absolutely. So at the crux of it in M&A, you're working on building and scaling a business, and with that comes capital allocation questions. With those capital allocation questions, it's easy to look at it for the numbers and the returns. What you're really doing is enabling the business to compete and enhance its competitive advantage. And that impacts not only the people within the organization, but the end result, the customers.
So Nick, Access offers a ton of modern tools that most middle market private equity firms don't. Which of those tools has been most impressive to you, and which tools have you used not only at ASTP, but at Zeus, and have those tools helped in your transition?
They certainly have. And knowing that those tools were transferable from one port code to another really gave me the assurance that this was not going to be just a stop, but it was going to be an opportunity to grow right out of the gate. And for instance, one of those, we use what we used to call our growth seeker, and we have a different name for it here at Zeus. But we want to quantify and geomap exactly where our growth opportunities are. We're searching for adjacencies. We're searching for great businesses. We're watching all the pieces of the puzzle come together because of this tool. It really helps us visualize and attack.
So let's get a little more granular, and then let's open the aperture a bit for our audience, right? Mm-hmm. As part of the corporate development function, we're looking to acquire great businesses.
That's right.
So how do those tools translate into helping us identify great businesses?
So as we have our priority markets mapped and identified, we're then able to go in at a very deep level and understand the businesses that reside within those networks. Within those networks, we get to understand the quantities and the qualities of the businesses and whether or not they fit our corporate strategy. And we can then just proceed with the required outreach to make it all a reality.
So which of those tools gives us the ability to actually deliver that?
We leverage Salesforce, we leverage Power BI, we leverage a lot of AI, especially now.
Yeah. So let's geek out a little bit on corporate development, right?
Sure.
We want to identify great businesses we want to own. There's 15,000 alarm companies in the United States. How do we get from 15,000 down to a priority market list, down to a priority want to own list, and then learn as much as we can about that business so that we can tailor that outreach so that we can make the most impactful first call to that prospective seller?
So when we look at the macro perspective and we prioritize the states based on regulations, cost of doing business, insurance, of where we really want to compete, where we think we can do a great job, we'll then zero in on the companies that are located within those markets. And we'll start to curate data such as how much commercial business they're doing, the leadership profile of the company, the reoccurring revenue that they have. We're also understanding quite a bit about their customer base, what their retention data is. Employee retention is incredibly important to us. The list can go on, and I promise you it does. It's very, very curated.
So we know an incredible amount about these businesses before we ever make that first phone call.
We do.
How does that help us?
It helps us because think of it from your seat. When someone calls you out of the blue and has an opportunity to become a partner, and that's how we really perceive it as partnership, you want to know that they are actually listening and they're paying attention and that it's not a self-seeking venture. It's really mutually beneficial. And I think that comes across the more homework you do, the more you know about the individual and the company and the family that has owned this business for so long. They understand how much you care, and that resonates.
So in addition to all the tools, which are just incredible, right? We also have playbooks that we use that work from portfolio company to portfolio company to portfolio company. What's a playbook? How do we use them? And why do they translate so well from one portco to another?
They translate so well because we're building a modern, enduring business that was once a family-owned business and did not have these playbooks formally established and institutionalized. But through partnership and through a lot of collaboration and communication, we're able to document the processes and the best practices that work. And what's great is that although the industry may change, the foundation of the people that are required, the processes that are so important, and the overall continuous improvement that happens along that playbook, it becomes measurable in terms of the impact and the value that can be created.
So what's an example of some of the playbooks that we run here at Zeus that you may have used over at ASTP?
Yeah, so the M&A playbook is very near and dear to my heart because it walks you through the very beginning of the interaction with a potential acquired company all the way through to the end. And it gives you each step of the process from the initial outreach and the initial data compilation, the questions, the due diligence, all of the pre-close work that must be done. So it really is foolproof. It's documented. You'd really need to have your eyes closed and not paying attention to execute upon it.
Yeah, so we talk about lift and shift all the time, right? These great tools at Access that we lift and shift over to a portfolio company, but we really lift and shift playbooks from portfolio company to portfolio company, and they work.
They do. They do. It's really a testament to the playbook itself, and I think the dedication of the team to execute upon it. They've seen what works. There's no need to recreate the wheel. Just go and execute, and the rest will take care of itself.
I imagine there's a lot of camaraderie between ACEs, not only within Zeus, but within the entire Access portfolio system. Tell me about that. Is there camaraderie amongst ACEs?
Absolutely. So the peer network is unparalleled. I had spoken with Gordon Lawson, our co-VP here at Zeus.
Zeus employee number one.
Zeus employee number one for many months, and for the entirety of my time within the ACE program before actually joining him as a colleague. The idea sharing, the perspectives being shared, it's not just at formal leadership events. It is consistent day to day, week to week, month to month.
So you've got somebody or multiple people at portfolio companies throughout the Access ecosystem that you can reach out to ask questions, to run through a problem, to talk about a different strategy.
I think that you're not leveraging and you're not getting the value out of the ACE ecosystem if you're not doing that on a consistent basis. That is key to really attacking and understanding how you can solve problems that you may not have had that perspective before. So I can count many times where I've had a similar situation in the student transportation business that someone in the fire and life security and safety business had, and we just had completely different perspectives on how to solve a very similar challenge. Being able to leverage that resource, being able to contact the network, spoke volumes to not only why the ACE program was built, but how it can be leveraged for better results.
Yeah, so it's clear that you've really had a great experience being an ACE. It's clear to me, having now 8 ACEs across Zeus, across corporate development, strategy, and marketing, that this is a phenomenal program. If somebody's listening to this podcast and they're as excited about the ACE program as you are or I am, what should they do?
They should dive right in and they should reach out, because I promise it will be a incredibly rewarding experience.
And who should they reach out to?
They should reach out to Kate Hardy.
So Nick, you've had an opportunity to transition from one portfolio company to another. Mm-hmm. If there's an ACE listening to this podcast, and they should all be listening to this podcast, what would you tell them as they think about transitioning from one portco to another? What advice or guidance would you give them?
I would advise them to celebrate the success that they had at their prior portfolio company, because that's a meaningful experience. I would also advise them to make sure that they maintain their humility and their intellectual curiosity, because they're going to be joining an already in-flight platform, or maybe a soon-to-be platform. And with that comes new beginnings, new teams, new goals, new strategy, and really being open and curious about that, and then really thinking about how you can support it and even advance it beyond its current state is important.
Yes, so we talk a lot about humility being critically important, humility and curiosity. One could argue that you were just part of a successful exit, right? If there was an opportunity to kind of, thump your chest for a minute, it would be right after that. But yet you came in here as humble and as curious as ever. Is that part of the ACE training? Is that Nick Tierno? Why show up like that, Nick?
I think it's part of my DNA, but the Access ecosystem and the ACE training clearly reinforces that that's the way. And the reason it is the way is because you're joining a company and you're joining a leadership team that has decades of experience. And you'd be lost to think that you couldn't learn something from that to better yourself. Lastly, when you're joining a team of established leaders, they've seen success, you have the opportunity to build credibility and trust with them. And the number one way to do that is to show them that you care. The number one way I feel you can show you care is to actually listen and learn and ask as many questions as you possibly can.
So leadership teams across the Access portfolio system are quite different. Going from one portfolio company where you spent a lot of time, had a ton of success, to another, and then kind of adopting that new culture.
Yes.
Was that difficult? Was it a challenge? How'd you handle that?
So becoming part of any culture comes with frequency and communication. So having FaceTime, having regular touch points, having one-on-ones with the leadership team to really understand how they're thinking about the business and what their priorities are. You understand how you can support that cause, and it helps you assimilate that much more easily.
So you talked a lot about ACE events. I'm curious, is there an ACE event in the past or recently that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, so just recently we had a call across the entire ACE ecosystem, and what's been very clearly defined is that this is a true opportunity for us to craft our futures. And when I say that, what I mean is these are very targeted development programs where I think every leader is intrigued in how they can get better and how they can up their game. So this is no different. Exactly what we're going to be doing is based on the functional area that you sit within, where you see your career headed. There will be very targeted based on your skill sets and your experiences and maybe some of the blind spots that you may have and not even know you have will be crafted so that you can complement and become the full, well-rounded leader that you need to really own your future.
That's perfect, and it actually dovetails incredibly well into my last question for you, Nick, and that is 5 years from now, what's Nick Tierno doing?
5 years from now, I would love to see myself still within the Access ecosystem, continuing to develop, continuing to lead, continuing to make an impact. So I'll make sure that I take that responsibility on myself. The resources have been clearly provided, so it's fully upon me to make it happen.
That sounds terrific. Nick, thanks so much for joining us today in the 3P's podcast, and look forward to being a big part of that next 5 years.
Thank you very much.
Nick, thanks for sharing your journey. What you've described is exactly what the ACE program is all about, giving high-performing professionals the chance to sit at the table with senior leaders, driving significant business improvements, and building the skills to lead companies in the future. At Zeus, we've seen firsthand how impactful that can be. In fact, Zeus employs 8 ACEs throughout its corporate development, strategy, and marketing teams. Programs like ACE don't just prepare people for their next job, they prepare them to step into leadership roles and make a difference right away. For anyone interested in learning more about the ACE program, you can visit accessholdings.com. And for more stories and insights from Zeus, be sure to follow us on LinkedIn or visit ZeusFireandSecurity.com. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the 3P's podcast on YouTube so you never miss an episode, and share this one with a colleague or friend who might find it valuable. Until next time, thanks for listening to the 3P's podcast. And remember, at Zeus Fire and Security, we're better when we're together.